I have been trying to process Sophie's death for the past week. I cannot think of any other pop star that was simultaneously so ahead of the times, yet so emblematic of it. She had this way of being on the forefront of pop, but instead of coming off as a time traveler, bringing pop from the future to us in the present, she appeared as someone who just deeply understood what she was passionate in and was able to show just how far pop music could go. I loved her for it. So many people loved her for it, and so many are mourning her absence, me included. With an artist that has done as much as Sophie, any video that tries to properly cover all of her work would result in a multi-hour long project, a video that I do not have the time to make. So instead of covering the woman's entire career, I'll just talk about my favorite thing she has made. Her album, Oil of Every Pearl's Uninsides, is a accumulation yet also a deviation of her previous works. It is a firm deviation from her more hyperpop and PC music background, but there are still so many elements from that period that scream through the new sound. It is a fascinating record, one that only Sophie could have made. Where do I even start when it comes to talking about this record? How about sound? Sophie is known for being one of hyperpop's biggest stars, and she shows her embracement of those ideas through her sound design. In particular, her embracement of soft synths. Soft synths often have a colder and less warm sound than their analog counterparts, but that does not mean that soft synths are bad by default. The sounds that Sophie conjures on this album are insane and highly varied. I have no clue how she even made half of these, and for her to be able to have an album with such a consistent and wild sound is an achievement on its own. She was able to do the nice and delicate keys on tracks like It's Okay to Cry, and expansive pads on tracks like Pretending, but that is not what Sophie is known for when it comes to sound design. Ask anyone to sing Face Shopping to you, and more likely than not, they're going to say the first line, and then they're going to go boop bop boop bop boop 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 bop boop bop. Sophie is beloved and remembered for these kinds of sounds. Harsh, abrasive, but endlessly fascinating. As much as she is beloved for her earlier shimmery pop aesthetic, these aggressive, pounding, and unnatural sounds are the things that shock the system instantly. It alienates the listener from what they expect from pop music, but still draws them in to find out what more the song can give them. This alienation is best found in the song Face Shopping, one of her most popular tracks. Face Shopping transitions from the song before it, Pony Boy, but the song itself starts with the lyrics, "My face is the front of shop," followed by those synths that I mimicked earlier. The vocals in this section, and for most of the songs, are delivered by Cecile Believe, and come through loud and clear. They sit alone with nothing else accompanying them, and they are not lyrically delivered, but more given as direct statements. The synths respond to what Believe said, but instead of coming through directly and clearly like the vocals did, they sound muffled, almost as if they are being restrained or swallowed by something. We transition from the intro into the verse, and the song changes entirely. Those two elements of the song, clean vocals and swallowed synths, get reversed instantly. The vocals are now swallowed and heavily manipulated. I had no clue what Sophie was saying in these sections until I looked up the lyrics. Sophie's voice sounds low and robotic, occasionally glitching out, letting the sheets of metal that hold her together rattle. The synths, on the other hand, have been released from their prison and are going insane. The synths show their freedom in this section, most obviously, with how they are jumping around. The synths jump in these high intervals, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere when paired with the vocals. The kick drum is a sledgehammer, destroying all other instruments that dare to make a sound. The snare sounds just as chaotic as everything else, sounding like someone taking a bat to a piece of metal. There are these cut-up vocal samples as well, screaming and squealing over the track in odd ways, adding to the inhuman atmosphere Sophie is trying to create. Eventually, Believe starts singing again, and is joined in by a synth that takes over the melodic duties when she is not singing, relating back to that idea at the start of the song of vocals and synths staying separate from one another. When we eventually move past that verse, we go to the chorus, bringing us back to the sound of the intro, where the synths are staying out of the way of the vocals, with the vocals only ever really being interrupted by a few percussive sounds. The lyrics help us make even more sense of what the music is doing. The song itself is about beauty, in particular the unobtainable beauty standard that is pushed by popular media, a standard most oftenly pushed on women. The first statement that the song makes talks about how important looks are in the modern world. To stand out in the internet age, one must have a presence and a personality that will help with the sale. The line, "My face is the real shop front," shows this idea. One's personality is tied to the products that one sells. If you want to make it and be up there with the elites, you need to make sure that you come correct. Make sure that you are selling a worthy product and that you present that product flawlessly. Now here's the problem. Not everyone is presenting themselves unaltered. A lot of people use Photoshop to meet that pop culture standard. That gets addressed by the line, "I'm real when I shop my face." After that line, we fall into the robot section, the verse. The lyrics that were difficult to hear due to the high amount of processing are actually artificial bloom, hydroponic skin, chemical release, synthesize the real, plastic surgery, social dialect, positive results, documents of life. Now those lyrics are fascinating on their own, talking about the high levels of effort, not just in Photoshop, but with plastic surgery, makeup, skincare routines, and most importantly, learning how to speak in a way that will make people listen. But the last line of the verse always speaks the most to me. Documents of life. For most people, what you do in the limelight is the only thing that will show that you existed. And your existence will be something that is not you. It's a deep, deep thought that you can get lost in for hours. The lyrics give the music an added lift. We now understand that the sections with the synth submerged are moments of reflection, realizing that to be an elite in the world, you need to give up something that is essentially you, altering yourself to be something you might not be, in the same way that Sophie changes her voice in the verses. Just in these two sections, Sophie and Believe are giving us so much to digest and think about. You could just call it there and you would have a great song, but this track peaks at the bridge. The bridge is what brings everything together. How would you introduce a new section to this song? We already have such great interplay between these two ideas that introducing something new might take away from that dynamic, making the song weaker overall. Sophie realized this problem and overcame it in the most incredible way possible. Instead of having a new section come in that could relate to the verse and the chorus, she instead adds something entirely new. There's a brief pause at the end of one of the choruses, and then the shiniest synth I have ever heard shows up. The various synths sparkle around us as the pads underneath give the free and flowing voice of Believe the room to express herself fully. This dreamlike section comes from nowhere, changing the entire song. It feels so safe, so comforting. Even when Believe goes away and gets replaced by these modulated vocals and odder synth sounds, it still sounds so nice and comforting. And sadly, this section comes crashing down and we go back into the song as we know it, with its abrasive and intense nature, taking us out of that dream state. The lyrics reflect this idea of fantasy. So you must be the one that I've seen in my dreams. Come on, touch me, set my spirit free. Oh, test me. Do you feel what I feel? Do you see what I see? Oh, reduce me to nothingness. The lyrics are a love song to the idealized person we wish to become, wishing for them to take us away from the human body and all of its flaws and let us live that life in the spotlight. This is how you write the bridge to a song. It expands the song in a fascinating way without muddling down any of its original ideas. There are more subtle ways to transition to the bridge, but that abrasiveness only adds to the song. As fantastic as this song is on a compositional and sound design level, I also love the lyrical contents of this track, mainly due to Sophie's relation to her public image. For this, let's look at the first single she released from this album and its first track. It's Okay to Cry requires some context. Before this album, Sophie never showed her face. She remained completely anonymous, and all that was known about her was her sound. This odd, glossy, and bright pop vibe that matched to the ideas of her colleagues, A.G. Cook and Charlie XCX, but was still very much her own. As is tradition, there's always the question of when that anonymity will break. What does she look like, and why does she hide her face in the first place? The answer to that last question was that she wanted to separate the artist from the music, having the music stand on its own and not have the listener focus on something like what the artist looks like or what they think. This choice to remain anonymous is interesting to me. Many mediums allow for anonymity, but music is easily the best for trying to stay secret due to there being no visual component that you need to appeal to if you don't want to. But as a trade-off, there is a wide amount of people that want to fill that visual absence. Music is special because it is often a purely auditory medium, but most people cannot just sit with a song alone and let that be it. They need their eyes to be engaged with something as well, whether that's a music video or something that they are doing while they are listening to music. This is not necessarily a bad thing. Listening to music without visuals does not make you special, and needing visuals to stay interested in a song does not make you appreciate music less. What it does mean is that anonymous artists often don't get their wishes met when it comes to the wish of wanting to stay separate from the art. This was the case for the music video for It's Okay to Cry. In interviews, Sophie said that she was proud of the music video, but was initially disappointed by how much people focused on her being seen and having an image that they could now give to Sophie, an image that could come before her sound. Now, I understand this fear as someone who hides their face online as well. The speculation about how I look is not on the same level as her, of course. I'm just some 100 subscriber YouTuber and she is this insanely talented pop producer. However, I would hate for the focus of my life, writing and music, to be secondary and overlooked when compared to my image. Sophie had such an original voice, and for that to be overtaken by how she looks would be a shame. However, Sophie did have a change of heart and she started to embrace the visual side, and as far as I could tell, she loved performing live and having all these beautiful costumes and outfits that she could put on. In another interview, she said that part of her anonymity was being more comfortable being behind the scenes, not known. And as she grew up, she got more and more comfortable with being seen and being in the public eye. There is another part that I cannot confirm, but I think it is a big reason why she became so comfortable being in the public eye. And I think it has to do with the pouring of trans support on the music video. No one knew what Sophie's gender was before It's Okay to Cry, and there was a lot of speculation about that question. And for Sophie to have the first time she shows her face to be while she is naked, all whilst singing a song about how she understands how you feel your pain, the pain of trying to fit into society's image and feeling like you are not good enough for it, or that you could never fit that image in the first place, falling deep into depression and isolation, and she comes to us and just lets us know that it's okay to cry, it's okay to feel sad about these feelings, but none of those horrible feelings you feel mean that you are not worthy of love, and that I still love you no matter how much you don't love yourself. To quote the lyrics directly, there's a world inside you. I want to know what it's like. I want to go there with you, because we've got a dark place. Maybe if we shine some light there, it won't be so hard. I want to know those parts of you. Oh! Oh, those lyrics ruin me! Nothing hits me harder. I wish I could tell every person I love that. And for Sophie to choose this song to reveal what she looks like, who she is, about how we're all worthy of love, oh my, it sends shivers down my spine every single time. There is a reason that this woman is beloved in the trans community, and that so many people see this song as one of the most beautiful and most touching moments in queer art. That acceptance, that love, all of it coming together, it's perfect. It's one of the greatest pop songs there will ever be, and I love it so much. And that doesn't even get into the instrumentation and vocal delivery. Sophie delivers her message softly, whispering at points, and always keeping this intimate delivery to her vocals. She also has this reverb on her voice that has a trail that floats up into the higher frequencies. Always makes my hair stand up on end. This helps create that caring atmosphere that makes the song so gorgeous. She only raises her voice at the very end, at the climax of the song, where the perspective seems to shift from talking about someone else and back to Sophie, telling herself that it's okay to cry. The keys that surround this track also add to the magic. Every sound is so fragile, matching Sophie's dynamics, but never getting in the way of her voice. And when Sophie reaches the climax of the song, they explode out, keeping up with Sophie's energy, and they overflow with love. You might have noticed that It's Okay to Cry sounds quite different from Face Shopping, the track we talked about earlier. And there's a good reason for that. Sophie modulates between these two kinds of sounds throughout the album, harsh and soft, and always keeps them separate. Songs like Face Shopping, Pony Boy, and Not Okay are much more abrasive and harsh, and contrast with the softer and kinder tracks like Is It Cold in the Water, Infatuation, and Pretending. These two ideas, harsh and angular versus soft and relaxing, are developed throughout the album, and we get to explore how Sophie expresses herself through these styles. Sophie's love for abrasive and fierce digital sounds drives the harder tracks. Her sound design in this category has always been a high point, but the lighter tracks have just as much interesting material in them. A track like Infatuation does not have the same level of intensity that a track like Not Okay has, but it's still fascinating. The song's lyrics have two different meanings based on your interpretation. The first is that this is a love song about someone that turns into obsession. Finding someone that you know is bad for you, but being drawn to them. Wanting to understand everything about them, every sound they make when they sleep, the way they pronounce every word, the location of every scar on their body, the general hyper-romantic stuff that leads into obsessive. The second interpretation is the one that I find more interesting. There is a theme on this album of self-hate, of not meeting society's image and feeling horrible for it, feeling like a freak for not being your true self, both in the sense of what society wants and what you yourself want. Within this theme, this song changes from an obsessive love song to a song of true self-hate, being obsessed with the person that you are not but you could be. It is a continuation of the ideas of face shopping. It's not wanting to become this better person, it's wanting that better person to make you turn into dust, to erase you from time. This song does not necessarily have lyrics that say that this is a good thing or a bad thing, it just says that this is a thing in general. But maybe the music can lead us to an answer. The song is centered around these reverberated vocals that stay with us throughout its running time. They instantly create an ethereal atmosphere, one that is more appropriate for adoration rather than warning. This view is further enforced by the keyboard sound that pops up, sounding safe and reassuring, especially compared to something like face shopping. The bass even behaves, staying in the lower frequencies and providing a bed rather than being a sledgehammer that destroys everything. However, as the song progresses, that sweet atmosphere starts to change. The bass gets louder and louder, starting to act more unwieldy. And more importantly, this distorted and detuned lead shows up, floating over everything, ruining the mood, leading these beautiful lyrics about love to have a much more dark and sinister tone to them. It turns the idea of obsessing over the ideal life into one that is filled with just as much hate as it is with love. Even in these more relaxed tracks, Sophie is still able to find intrigue and pull out a fascinating message. These two ideas are never at war with each other. They exist more as neighbors. They never threaten one another or invalidate each other. They just happen to share space on the same album. It's not really a big deal. Until the final song on this album, Whole New World / Pretend World. This song is a synthesis of all the ideas that Sophie had on this album. Finally! After teasing us for so long, we finally have these two styles dance together. The track starts off very abrasive, with the kick constantly hitting in these repetitious patterns, and then eventually being joined in with sirens, and also the words Whole New World. The track is absolutely trying to lean more into that aggressive, harsh nature. Sophie's distorted vocals even make a return. However, there are points in the track where it just kind of stops and ambient pads seep in to fill in the dead air. It's almost like the track needs a break, like its aggressive and angry nature cannot be sustained and it starts to fall apart underneath its own weight. As the track goes further on with aggressive beat changes, it feels like it's getting weaker. The ambience is invading, taking the higher frequencies first and then coming for the mids. The aggression tries its best to stay as long as it can, being odd and weird, giving us new snare sounds, adding in fills, but it's not enough. The pad overtakes everything, along with Believe in Sophie's vocals. The change to an ambient track is incredible. It's not like anything else we've heard on this record. Voices rise and fall like steam. Cars sound like they are whizzing by. High frequencies are fought over. The vocals are buried, but not by bass this time, but air-filled synths. Chaos is brought to the ambience, and we finally have a connection between these two ideas. On the final minutes of the final track, Sophie gives us our payoff and fully explores these two ideas working together. It's such incredible payoff. It's one of the strongest endings to an album I have ever heard, and I love it so much. As I mentioned in my last video, I've been busy with school, so I can't go into all the other things I love about this record. I'm not going to talk about Immaterial and her stuff on Product, even though that stuff is just as fascinating as her stuff on here. I'm not going to talk about her history, her collabs with PC Music. I'm not going to talk about Hyperpop or any of that stuff. I'm not going to talk about those because there are so many videos about Sophie right now that any of the questions you have, someone already has a video answering them. Everyone this past week has been making a video about Sophie, and I don't think it's a cash grab, or at the very least, I really don't want it to be. Maybe it's the optimist in me, but I think that people just love Sophie. They were all touched by this incredible producer, and want people to know just how much they meant to her, and how much she meant to music. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you know anyone who's in mourning, reach out to them, tell them that everything's going to be okay. Tell your trans friends how much you love them, and yeah, just be nice to each other. Be nice, enjoy this music, and yeah, I love you. Have a good day. Bye.